Hello, everybody. It's Todd on the road with Copley Global Solutions, and welcome back to our video section of the book where we get to expand on the chapter and the workbook that you just finished reading. We also get the opportunity to bring on some people to include friends, colleagues, and some of my heroes that I believe specifically embody the theme or promise that you just finished reading about. Before we start, again, thanks for being a part of the book and joining us in Outrunning the Light and embarking on your own journey of discovery and promise. And congratulations on making it way through promise number 2. I seek my true purpose and desire. Now, if you'll recall, in chapter 1, we talked extensively about how to bring adventure into our daily lives. And we know that embracing adventure in your daily life is one of the first steps in crafting an exceptional life. But it's in chapter 2 where we begin to lay the roots of creating your personal why, understanding and verbalizing your passion, and beginning the development of your true purpose. What do you really want to do with your life, and how to push through the challenges that will try and bring you down? Now, as we say in the workbook, finding true purpose is not a dream. It is a very well scripted process that begins with understanding what you're good at and what you love and what will sustain you in the manner that you want to live. And for today's short program, I am joined by another grand adventurer and someone that's been an amazing friend of mine for over 10 years now. My next guest is an Olympic gold medalist, winning gold in 1992 in kayak canoe slalom during the Barcelona Games. He's an accomplished author and writer. He's the former CEO of USA Canoe Kayak, a television Olympic sport analyst, and founder of a leading performance coaching brand. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Joe Jacobi. Joe, how
Hey,
are you, buddy?
hey, Todd, bon dia.
Great to see you again. I know you're right up the road from me. I'm in Perpignan and you're up in La Sueur, right?
I am. I'm right next to the 1992 Olympic whitewater canoeing course where
Wow.
I've been living for 7 years now. I'm on an exciting adventure here, and I just so excited about getting to talk about the this book and people's quest to learn and do better and purpose and desire. Man, I love the topic.
Yeah, I knew you would, and you're just absolutely perfect for this too. And what you do with your performance coaching business is amazing. And you don't become an Olympic gold medalist without true purpose and desire. And so there's nobody better in the world to relate to this. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to jump right in. Is that all right?
Let's go.
All right. So the first question I've got for you is this. This chapter, it centers around seeking true purpose and desire. And I've got two related questions for you. We'll do one and then the next one here. But it's been said that desire can lead to true purpose. Can you tell us and the readers or talk about when you develop your desire for the sport of canoe slalom and when and how did that become your true purpose, focusing you towards the Olympics?
I thank you for the question, Todd, and I think it's such a great place to start. As I think about how and why, we as adults in our midlife get stuck and get a little bit tripped up, or and what helps us to get out of that. I think thinking back to like what we liked, what we enjoyed, what lit us up like when we were 10, 11, 12 years old is really important. And so like I want to start there for me because when I was 10 years old, like I grew up in the Washington D.C. area. I love sports. I wanted to be in sports, but I was not a healthy or like the most athletic kid on the playground. If I was going to go into sports, like it was for sure going to be in like sports media or something like that.
Okay.
And so what happened at summer camp in the DC area where we had kayaking as an activity. So this was the late 1970s, Todd. And a lot of camps had canoes, but very few camps had kayaks. And I grew up at, around this summer camp called Valley Mill in Upper Montgomery County, and kayaking was activity. It was an activity there. And the thing was, when I was 10, I was one of the first two people in the group to learn how to do the Eskimo roll, which is when you flip over, is riding the boat back up into an upright position. And I had never been the first at anything before. I had never been the fastest, the biggest, the strongest. And so it's really funny when you're 10, 11, 12 years old, when you're good at something, you're like, like, what if I did a little bit more of that, you know? And not a bad choice, because kayaking on rivers is this really fun, engaging, gravity, downhill feeling, sense of flow. But where I really want to dial in on your question, while canoeing and kayaking is amazing as like the feelings you get with the sport, where my answer is a little bit different than a lot of the people you talk about in the sport. Like I was just always attracted to and gravitated towards the people who did the sport. Like that just really felt like, oh, not only did I feel accepted in the group, but if I just looked at who they were and their stories and what they were doing, like it's not like a team sport, right? Kayaking is you, the boat, the water, it's you and nature, yourself. There is some competing against the other person, but it's not like football where the coach is, saying, Copley, why weren't you at practice today? In
Right.
kayaking, no, if you miss practice, like no one's going to be like calling you up and shouting at you. But if you show up, they're going to be like, Todd, we're glad you're here. And there was something about that for me that really pulled me in and said, yeah, I could be a part of that. So that was really what opened the door for me. And secondly, I'll be very quick on this. The guys that I was showing up at my very first canoeing sessions with, these weren't just good people. They were the best in the world. Like it was like my own Malcolm Gladwell outlier story. It was John Lugbill and Davey Hearn and Kathy Hearn and Lecky Haller, these amazing champions of the sport, the best performers, and Bill Endicott, the legendary coach of the sport. These
Right.
like first exposures to the sport. So you can hear it in my voice. Like that's it. That's the answer to the question. That's where I found desire and purpose.
Oh, wow, that's a great story. Oh my gosh, and how fortunate you were to be in that environment with those people like that can help nurture you. Now, I'm going to pivot this around. I said there was two parts to this question.
Yes, there
So
is.
we got you. You got the true purpose and desire. Wow, became an amazing gold medalist in your chosen thing, which is amazing. Flash forward now 30 years. And by your own words, you had become a little bit chunky, overweight, unhappy, and unfocused Olympic sport CEO. Same questions, Joe. How did you find the true purpose and desire there?
Slowly, very, very slowly, Todd. I mean, and I think this is where I think this is a great, like in a way, I feel like when I was 10 years old, I hit that first roll and it felt like when you're 10, it was an instant, right? Oh, this is my thing. I remember, when I was CEO of USA Canoe Kayak, I didn't really have that same purpose. I had a belief, in the way I did the sport and the values that I was brought up in. But the more I got into it, I wasn't very happy with the people I was serving by and large. Put it this way, I I thought it was very normal and very routine in a work environment, in a leadership environment, that you should uh, kind of dislike most of your most of the things in your situation and most of the people in your environment in exchange for liking a very few things and a very few people in your environment. And I like really thought like that's the way the world worked. And it was very hard to challenge that assumption, but you're right. I lost myself in that process, and it is interesting we're talking today because on the day we're talking, it's been 10 years
Right.
since I left that job at USA Canoe Kayak, which was an auspicious jump in that like I didn't have so much momentum or idea in that jump. But 10 years later, like I don't want to, I know I'm not the same athlete I was in my 20s, but physically I feel as good as I was in my 20s. I actually weigh 60 pounds less than I did, when I had that
Wow.
job. I can do all kinds of things. I'm open to all kinds of learning and curiosity and serving today. And, it just sort of took, like a bit of a trust, Todd, a bit of some understanding
Hmm.
that settling in for the long game. Like, I really feel like this has been in reality a 10-year journey. But yeah, I'm living in a different country. I am, learning a new language. I am doing all kinds of activities I never imagined doing. I'm working with clients who are achieving unbelievable outcomes, like things that I couldn't imagine being in their shoes and doing, but I get to help them do that.
Right.
And in there, you sort of really find that idea of finding, for me, what those four elements of purpose are. I have my relationship with Maria and relationships in general, but the relationships. I have creativity, I have my health and wellness, and then I have my coaching and my work. And I think when you live in uh, like a small house, but it has like your life is equally divided in the rooms,
Yeah,
you focus on the health of all four rooms, not just one thing.
that's
And I
right.
think in midlife, that really makes a big difference.
It's funny that you mentioned that because and I know with the book's going to be coming out in a month or so. You're going to get in this, but one of the practices that we use or the models that we use is exactly what you mentioned there. We call it the four quadrants of life. And it's evaluating yourself as it pertains to these four quadrants. And, one is relationships, one is your health and your fitness. Three is your work and your vocation, and fourth is your financial security and your sustainment and being able to live the life that you want. And going into clients with that approach, rating these, we call it the diamond map, and you try and get tens on all of these, and you look where you're lacking, and that's where you focus. But it's with all of these combined, not just like, hey, I need to get a better job. No, you need to get a better life, and that can be better with relationships and these things. So that's great that you mentioned that.
By the way, I mean, I love that. I mean, I think the model that diamond work is very visual to me as well. I would even say, even if you just imagine for a moment, Todd, if those four ends of the diamond, let's just say that all of them are operating on like roughly sevens out of tens,
Right.
over a 5-year basis. I've got news for you. Like science shows, like and compounding interest, your life is going to be better in 5 years,
Yeah.
but it's like that's the long term, that's the patience part of it. And then the other thing is when one of those corners is in real trouble, I think it can be, intuitively like we just want to go in and fix that one thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think one of the things that we learn in our 40s, our 50s, and our 60s is that when we actually stay true to those other three, say, corners of the diamond that are working well, they can help bring up the quality of the fourth
Yeah.
quarter, corner as well. It's counterintuitive and it sounds nice to just say it, but to put that into practice is a really interesting experiment.
It truly is. It truly is. The uh, Another question here. In your performance coaching curriculum, and of course in your book, which for our readers is entitled Slalom, you definitely need to go out and get this book too. You go into depth speaking about, and I'm going to quote you on this too, bringing focus to exactly what matters most.
Yeah.
Now, for me, we equate that to true purpose and desire. But for our readers, can you talk through what that means to you?
Yeah, it's interesting. So since we are doing this on video, I know that people can see behind me some paddles. So those tall paddles behind me those are the kayak paddles that Maria and I use in the sea. And so Todd, I love my time paddling on rivers, but over the last couple of years, I've been surfing offshore ocean waves on a specialized kayak called a surf ski. And I have a coach in surf ski. He's absolutely amazing. And we have a process for surfing waves. Like I think surfing waves are a really wonderful metaphor. But I think one of the most overlooked elements of surfing a wave is step 3 of the wave surfing progression. And now this could be surf ski, but these are the waves of life as well.
Yeah.
And step 3 is wave selection. And that is like you can't select all the waves. And some of the waves are going to look really, really, really good. And sometimes you got to figure out how to let them pass and how to let them go. And so one of what Boyan says is that really when it all comes to the end, our best surfing in life is not going to be defined by the waves we chose to surf. Our best surfing is going to be defined by the waves we decided to let
Let
go.
go. Yeah.
And that's like, I'm spending a lot of time on this thing of like how to eliminate the fluff, because it's like there's an element of wave selection is really about subtraction. And this is really about taking a hard look at life and, what are the things that you really, really need, to focus on what matters most. So I think while it's attractive and sexy to sort of go, I want that and I want that, I think it's also you can do a lot of good things by saying, I don't want that. I don't want this. There's this thing in my life that I really want to get rid of. And that in itself, when those things go away, then the right waves start to appear for you, the ones that you can really surf well, surf a long time, and really enjoy, and really benefit from the free energy extraction of those waves. So yeah, that's kind of what I mean by this idea of really what matters most. A lot of it is subtraction.
Yeah. That is an amazing analogy. And I know in the book you talk about you compare these obstacles and these challenges in life to reading the river, to reading the
Yes.
waves, to selecting them. And it's a great analogy that that is not lost on me after reading the book. And certainly, in Outrunning the Light, we base this on a metaphor. It's more around the bicycle seat, but it's still very, very it's exciting to hear. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you too, so on your LinkedIn profile, you talk a bit about ways to help improve performance and to unleash potential. And in that vein, you mention an expression, I love it. You say designing intentional experiences designed with uncertainty, friction, and discomfort. I love that. It relates to kind of what we call the three concentric circles of the comfort zone, and from the comfort zone to the learning zone to the stress zone. You're either living in security and comfort, or you're stepping into those scenarios of what you call uncertainty and friction. Those are the zones where people grow and learn. Your thoughts on that? Because I think it's really, I think some people look at that and go, I don't know if I want that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that I think it's really trying to find what are the steps from where you are to just what is one step outside of it, not like 10 steps. This sort of just reminds me of the person that has never run before and is scrolling Instagram, sees all these, amazing photos in their feed of like of triathlons and marathons and, tough mudders and all these kind of events, these big endurance events. And they're like, it looks good, but it's like, where do I even begin? Well, you begin
Yeah.
with like a couch to 5K, but to sort of just dig in a little bit on the idea of discomfort. And again, even starting smaller than the couch to 5K, I'm just a really big advocate of, you know, um, finding little ways to add discomfort, friction, resistance into my life every day. And I'll give you two great life examples here, Todd. Number one, I do push-ups every day, and I sort of joke that Maria, my girlfriend, is my push-up coach. 5 years ago, I was doing about 50 push-ups a day, and then we were together during the quarantine during
Yeah.
COVID, She's like, I think we could do better. She doesn't, she's a really good athlete, but she doesn't do push-ups, but she's now my, what I call my push-up coach.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of push-ups every day. And it's like, I know that they're helpful and healthy and that they serve a purpose. The biggest things they do is that like every 24 hour, actually, the routine takes me about 20 minutes. So basically, every 23 hours and 40 minutes, I know the next one is going to start. As soon as I'm done, I know like there's another one that's going to start. And like, I know I'm going to hit my number eventually, but I may go to failure, have to like get up off the floor and start again to finish. And it's not like I enjoy them. It's not, it's not that I don't like really enjoy them, but I see the benefit of having something that I know that I need to face day in, day out. And it also gives me a lot of good information about myself too, because I've been doing push-ups every day for so long. Depending on how those push-ups go, even when they go well and I hit my number, you just notice the small, unique differences, like little fatigue elements or pain points, or the opposite, like, oh, I feel good today, and it's like, that's great. You use discomfort almost like a way of like taking your temperature every day. So that's one thing. And it's just an example. It doesn't have to be push-ups, but just something that just makes you feel like, oh, I'm not really looking forward to that. Secondly,
Right.
I live next to this Olympic canoeing venue, which is this amazing public park for the town of La Seu d'Urgell, where I live, city of 12,000 people. And there's an elevate, like there's these beautiful steps that go down from the town into the park. And there's an elevator there for, all kinds of people, disabilities, children, strollers, kids, bicycles, the elevator's there for that. And I like to travel, you and I both love to travel. And sometimes carrying a lot of bags from the house down to the park where my car is parked. And
Right.
I gotta tell you, I take a stupid pride in this comment that I'm about to make. At the end of 2024 when we do this interview. That elevator has basically been in place since 1992. I've never used it once. I've never
Yeah.
used it once. I always take the stairs. I don't care how many bags I have. I don't care. Like it's just like a little thing. Like I know it's there if I need it for some reason, but that day has not come yet. And like sometimes like I just see, perfectly healthy people. They've just become conditioned to take the elevator. And I'm
Right.
healthy, but I'm clearly should be, I have bags falling off me and canoe paddles and kayak paddles and like falling off me as I'm walking on the steps. And I have to put them back down. Sometimes I take a rest, like all that kind of stuff. And it's like that gets into tapping into this discomfort zone.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just playing with your thoughts and asking yourself, why am I resisting this? That's it. Why am I resisting this? And then when you do that, you start to say, okay, like I can give this a try. Maybe if I want to go back to the elevator, I know it's there if I want it. If I want to stop
Yeah.
doing push, I know that option is there if I want it.
Yeah. That's brilliant. That
That's a
is
lot.
totally brilliant. Yeah, it
That's
is. That
a
was
lot,
great.
but I hope it's helpful.
No, the stories are amazing. I've got one last question for you here. And there's a quote in Outrunning the Light, my book, that we say, when we examine the lives of successful and fulfilled individuals, there's one major difference that in my experience, stands out, and we've talked about this. It's purpose, and it's not always intelligence. It's not the smartest guy. It's not always skill. It's probably not always the guy that's got the best expertise, that sets them apart there. One, in my experience, it's the ability to act and to take action. There's a ton of Olympic gold medalists walking around this planet here, but haven't taken action on that. And, purpose turns doubt into a force to be reckoned with. What are your thoughts as a performance coach out there and talking to our audience on that concept of action and purpose?
So I mean, this is the crux of it all, right? I mean, and I think that I think some of the answers here might surprise you. As much as we sort of want to turn into resilience and grit and just do it, like I know that that's a part of it. But you know what else goes from sort of idea to action is self-kindness,
Yeah.
self-forgiveness, being gentle
Yeah.
with ourselves. You know, like there, like I think in life, like it's always a dance. Like we're always dancing with something. We're always dancing with two extremes. And I think that, you know, I think one of the sort of the models, I think people carry different models, like, you know, people in sales, right? Some people have the funnels, other people have the flywheel. You know, it's not so much a sales thing for me, it's just a life thing, but it's a scale. It's just like, you know, with the two, like an old timey scale where you can put like, the weight on one side and put the vegetables on the other. So like you can weigh the vegetables like that way.
Right.
So one of the things that I just naturally do with this model is that rather than sort of force myself into a position of, you know, readiness and like I got this together and it's like I'm not pushing myself to a place on the scale. I'm just checking in and noticing where I am because, and I think this is what's so important about this, I, I don't have to be like high on the scale to carry out an action. I don't have to be high on the scale to walk out the door and go for a run. I don't have to be high on the scale to do my push-ups. I can actually be pretty low on the scale. What it is, Todd, is just seeing where you are, observing where you are, noticing that, and making decisions based on that, right? So, as an example, if I sort of find myself on that scale, let's just say happy, irritable, right? Could be just two sides. And let's say I'm leaning
Mm,
towards irritable. I'm not trying to move myself towards happy. If I'm leaning heavily towards irritable, just notice that and then make choices based on that. Like, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm going to save the video message that I'm going to send to Maria for like 30 minutes down the road when I'm not so irritable. But when
right.
you start to do that, then, you know, you don't put yourself in a position of misalignment. And I think when we try to force ourselves into a space that we're not, that is like where people do so much damage to themselves and they set themselves backwards. Whereas you don't have to be feeling good. As I always tell people, I have seen with my own two eyes Olympians that were not in the best state of mind that made peace with their state of mind on the day of the Olympic race and leave the Olympic venue as an Olympic medalist.
Yeah.
They didn't talk themselves into being great. They just took stock of where they were and made choices on that.
Right.
And so what bugs me the most is that when people, I think the most damage is done is when people talk themselves into believing they're 100% when in actuality they're 45.
Yeah.
That to me is where the damage gets done.
Right. That's a great analogy as well. Listen, Joe, thank you so much for I say stopping by. I know you're right up the road, and our schedules are not going to allow us to link up again, and I'm very disappointed about that. This was great. Thank you
I
so
love
much
it.
for being a part of it. An amazing career that you've had, an amazing business that you've got going. I will. I'll touch base with you later on, Joe. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Todd.
Okay, let's see here.